Hello and welcome back to another Farming Simulator Giants Editor tutorial, and today you can see here I'm actually in the game itself, which would be Farming Sim 15, and I'm back here on the Thornton Farm map because I want to actually show you something that one of my subscribers has asked me to have a look at, and I figured, well, why not, let's come into this map and see what we can do with it. So it's to do with the chickens themselves, and specifically to do with the eggs that they produce. Now on this particular map you do have the water mod installed, so you do require, or they do require, water and grain to produce said eggs. So what I'm going to do here is actually just give them some water, as you can see there. I've purchased 50 of the chickens. I'm just going to go and dump this off over here out the way somewhere. That'll be fine. And now I need to find a trailer, so let me just go and grab that, and we'll give them a little bit of wheat. Now in this particular setup, it is still the standard that you would get. I mean, I've made some changes to the map itself, as you can see here, with the mix station and other bits and pieces, but the chickens themselves at this stage are exactly how you would get them if you were to download the map yourself. And we will then have a look at what change I'm going to make to it later on. But what I wanted to do first of all was come in here and actually get some chickens up together. Now I actually don't normally bother with the chickens because I just find them a little bit yeah, you know, but this may be something that will change my mind in the future, and we'll see how that works. So I'm just going to dump that manure into there. I was actually using it to spread on one of the fields from an overloader that I have parked up by field 13, but for now I'm just going to grab this trailer here so I can go and get some wheat and then give that to my chickens so they can hopefully produce some eggs a bit quicker. So we'll just change over to the actual grain body here, and we'll come around, grab some wheat, and then they don't take too much, so this, I won't need to put a lot in here. That's more than enough. There we go. So I'm just going to come around, give them some wheat like I say, and then what I will do is fast forward time so we can actually have a look at the way that the eggs are put down on this particular map, what I would call standard, the standard type of setup where you get random eggs spawned into the, or randomly spawned in eggs to the map itself. Like I said, don't take too much of the grain or the water. So let's just get this out of the way here so we can see what we're going to be doing here. Oops, there we go, that'll do. So okay, I'm just going to bring this out round here now, and we'll just bring it back round to the actual trigger here for me to dump it back in a minute. I'll do it now, why not? Might as well, in here. Actually no, I won't. Can't reverse, there we go. So let's just dump that there for now, because that's not what we're here to look at. I'm just going to wanted to bring you guys in to show you that I was just giving the chickens the grain and water that they required to produce the eggs on this particular map, so you could see it all working. But it's actually specifically to do with the eggs themselves. That's what this is really going to be about, and how we're going to change that. So now you can see in here they've got what they require to produce them. If I bring up the info menu here, we can scroll across, and you can see here in the chickens they have no eggs, and I've got none in my backpack. So, but they have got enough. I've got 51 chickens. I think that 51 is counting the cockerel, but that's fine. So they are at 100% productivity. They've got what they need. So what I'm going to do now is just fast forward time, and we'll go to the next day using the fast forward mod. So we'll just go around, and as you can see here, we've got some randomly spawned in eggs come on to the actual map itself. So we've got a couple over here. I've picked one up there, one up there. As you can see, I walk over them and we pick them up. For those that don't know, we come in here and there's a few more. There's some in here and we pick them up. Okay, so I'm not going to go around and pick them all up unless I already have. No, there's 7 left. So I've now picked up 13 of what was there, and there's still 7 on the map itself in that area where they were spawned in, which is fine. If you like the idea of that, having to hunt round and actually find them, then leave it as it is. You know, that's perfectly acceptable. You can see there's a few more here, but I do find sometimes on maps they can be spawned in some ridiculous places, and you can spend quite a lot of time just searching for that one mysterious egg that just doesn't seem to be anywhere on the map. But you know, like I say, that's entirely up to you if that's what you want to do. What I'm going to do is actually come out of this, and I'm going to open this map up in Giants Editor, and I'm going to show you a different way that, as I say, one of my subscribers has brought to my attention and has asked me to have a look into it to see how we go about putting it into the map itself. So I will come out of this. I won't save it because I'm going to make some changes that I don't want to save to this particular map at this time, but I'm going to exit out and come back to the desktop. See what I mean? There's, look, an egg floating in midair. Okay, whatever. So hopefully what I'm going to do will prevent that from happening, and also give us something I think is going to be a little bit more productive and will add something to the map and prevent you from having to run around and search for those eggs. Again, if that's what you want to do, go with it, but for me, I think this option is something that will work for me in the future for sure. So hopefully it will be the same for you. Okay, so I'm going to come out of this now. I'll see you back on the desktop in a little bit. Okay, so here we are back on the desktop. Well, actually in the browser here, and this is basically what we're going to be looking at here, the eggs pallet cage. And as you can see in the picture there, that's what we're going to end up with, hopefully, once I've imported it into the map. There's a good description here of what it actually is all about, and it gives you an idea from the actual guy who's put this together. I assume it is a guy, but he's basically saying, in my honest opinion, the production of eggs can be considered ineffective right now. So what he's trying to do is basically give something else which possibly will entice people to maybe get into production of eggs and more into the actual chicken husbandry in the base game. And I believe that he may have succeeded, again assuming it's a he. So gives you a description here of what it's all about and how we place it into the map and whatever else through Giants Editor. But when you download it, it does actually come with these same instructions within a README text file. So you know, don't need to basically have this open the entire time. You can just download it and then go into the actual unzip the zip folder. I think it's a RAR actually, but anyway, regardless, once you've extracted it after downloading, you can go into the folder and it will have the instructions in there and just basically follow those. But hopefully with this video and obviously the instructions provided, it will all come together and make it somewhat easier for you to get an idea of what it's all about, how it works, and how we go about putting it into the map, obviously using Giants Editor. So yeah, I've already downloaded this. Obviously I will provide a link in the description to this particular site, but it is on Mod Hoster, as you can see here. So if you just wanted to search for yourself, just go to Mod Hoster and search for egg pallet cage, but I will provide the link in the description anyway. So okay, so now I've got my Thornton Farm map here open, the folder, and I've already downloaded, as I say, and extracted the I believe it's a RAR file, but whatever, the egg pallet cage folder there, so we can open that up, and it gives you, obviously, as I say, your instructions. So you've got README text file here with whatever was on the actual Maru site, Mod Hoster site. So that information there is basically duplicated in this README text file, so that's fine. And then you've got some pictures here that show you obviously the finished product, and then the information or the actual images which refer to the attributes and the user attributes that we will be allocating and setting up within Giants Editor. So that's all of that. So what I'm going to do here is actually copy over this egg pallet cage folder into the Thornton Farm folder here. So I'm going to go into map and then models, and I've got a folder here called imported, which I created some time back for some other bits and pieces that I've brought into the map. So I'm just going to basically bring that over. I'm going to make a copy of it so I can keep the original one out here just in case I make some mistakes or whatever else, and it will be just easier to then overwrite what I've already got here with the duplicate or the backup on my desktop here. So now that I've got that into there, what I need to do is open up the map in Giants Editor. So for this particular map, the Thornton Farm map, I need to go into map, then map i3D, and it is actually called Nuston, but that's fine. It is actually Thornton, and then I'm going to open that with the Giants Editor like so. For those of you that haven't used Giants Editor before or only had a bit of a play around with it from time to time, you will get this quite often. It takes quite a little while for the actual system, especially if it's a heavily detailed map like Thornton Farm and others, where it has to load in a lot of textures. It may come up and say not responding and seem like it's frozen. Just be a bit patient with it. Don't start randomly clicking all over the place, because it will then cause Giants Editor to crash. So just have to be a bit patient and let it do its thing until it loads up. And then once you get in, you'll be absolutely fine. You might find it a bit stuttery when you first get in, because again, it's got to load everything or continue to load things in. But I've had this open a few times already, so I'm okay with that. And as you can see, it's nice and smooth, so that's all good. Okay. So coming over to the chicken husbandry area here, as you could see when we were in game, we've got our chicken husbandry here, the transform group in our cinnagraph, and it gives us all the information we need in here. We can open that up. We've got our nav mesh for where the chickens will be displayed and walk around on the ground, and whatever else, tip triggers, which you can see over here. Again, this has got the water mod installed. You may not have those if you're working with a map that doesn't have the water mod, so you may just have a transform group called tip triggers with nothing in it. That's perfectly fine. Just possibly means that the chickens will produce eggs randomly without the requirement of any grain or water or whatever else. Just depends on how the map has been set up by the creator of that particular map, the author of that map. But in this particular case, like I say, we have got the water mod installed, so it does give us wheat and water, but that's fine. As you could see in game, I have actually already given them that with our previous setup, where the eggs just randomly spawned in at certain places. Now what I'm going to do here is replace that with the egg pallet cage, as I've shown you on the actual mod hoster site here. This is what we're going to be replacing it with. So what I need to do here is basically import that into this map. Now I've already copied it over to the folder as I showed you here in the models and imported, and we have our egg pallet cage in there with all the relevant bits and pieces. So what I need to do now is bring that into the map, into the Thornton Farm map, or whatever map you're working with, and we do that by going into File, and then Import. I'm going to go back to my desktop to make sure I'm in the right folder here, because sometimes when I'm editing certain things multiple times, I may delete a folder and then copy it back over again, and it will remember where I was before though. That's the problem when I'm going to do this import. So it may look like I'm in the right folder, but I may not be, and then you'll have issues with textures not being displayed correctly and all sorts. So it's always worth just going back to the desktop or wherever you have this particular folder that you're playing with at the time, or editing or whatever else. So I'm just going to, as I say, go to the desktop, make sure I'm in the right folder. So I'm going to go into the Thornton Farm folder here, into map, and then models, imported, and I have my eggs pallet cage folder here. So I'm just going to open that up, and I'm going to then double click on the i3D, which will then bring it into the map. Now before I start placing it onto the map itself, what I want to do is highlight it in the actual cinnagraph here, and I'm going to go left Control and X on the keyboard to cut it so it will now disappear, and then I'm going to go into the chicken husbandry. I'm going to expand that out so you can see that it comes in, and I'm going to go Control V, and there it appears. So I've pasted it into the chicken husbandry transform group. But what I can't have now though is the eggs, which will be the randomly spawned in eggs there, plus the eggs pallet cage and the eggs that'll be spawned in there. So I can't have that. So what I need to do is actually delete the original transform group with the randomly dynamically spawned in eggs. So I need to highlight that in Cinegraph and then hit delete on my keyboard to remove that. So now with the actual eggs pallet cage highlighted, we can have a look in our attributes on the right hand side. And if I actually go into the instructions within this and bring up the actual PNG, the PNG pictures here, we can see that it's referring to our attributes and looking at the actual index paths for those particular attributes on those transform groups. So if I actually highlight the eggs in that pallet cage transform group, we can then see what that shows us. And in our index path we have the 2, 0, and if we look at this, it's actually showing us something slightly different because the way that the actual animals have been structured in the Cinegraph is slightly different for wherever this was taken from. So here we have cow husbandry, sheep husbandry and chicken husbandry, but on Thornton Farm it's actually chicken husbandry, sheep husbandry and cow husbandry, which is why there's slight differences. But what we're looking for here is just the N2 numbers. You don't need to worry about anything else. So if we follow the instructions here or the pictures, we can see that we do actually have our 2, 0 on the end there, which does actually match. And if I come through the actual pictures, you can see the egg pallet cage is on 2, and if I click on that, we have our 2. So that's fine, that still matches. And if I go across again, it's actually showing that, which is fine. It's 4, 2 on Thornton Farm, and 5, 2 in the actual picture, again because of the way that the actual husbandry has been set up in the Cinegraph by its transform groups, but that's perfectly fine as well. So all of that is as it's meant to be. I'm happy with that. So the next thing I need to do is actually look at the user attributes, and you can see here that it's actually showing the chicken husbandry and the actual eggs themselves. And in the user attributes we have this attribute called pickup object index, and that's what we need to change and adapt so that it allow us to actually pick up those eggs and put them in our backpack. But the only difference is we're going to be picking them up from an actual cage and not just somewhere randomly spawned on the actual ground, or in the actual case you saw earlier when I was in game, randomly spawned in midair. So what I need to do here is basically, I've got my user attributes window open down here. If this isn't already open for you, just go up to window and then user attributes, and this will pop up. So what I need to do here is actually go into the eggs and look at what we've got for our attributes on the right hand side, and we do actually have the same number as it's showing us in our picture here, 2 and then the 0, which is exactly what we've got. So 2 and then the break and then the 0, that's exactly what we've got. So what I need to do is just basically copy that, highlight it in the attributes, copy it, come back over into my chicken husbandry, and then we can come down to the pickup objects index for that section in our user attributes, and you can see it's already got the 2 in there, which was correct for what we had before because there was only the transform group called eggs, which was actually set up as 2 for the attributes, but now we have an extra transform group which is called the egg pallet cage. So if I click on the egg pallet cage, you can see that that is now become 2 in our attributes, and we have a separate transform group which is 2, 0, which is why we're having to adapt it to that within our actual pickup objects index. So by changing that, all we're doing is just moving it, shifting it if you like, the actual ability to look where it's going to pick up those eggs. We're literally just shifting it from that transform group down to this one, and then taking the attributes accordingly and updating them and changing them in our user attributes like so. Okay, so now that we've actually done that, I can go ahead and actually highlight the eggs pallet cage again in the cinegraph here, and I can go edit and then interactive placement and bring it over to a place on the map itself within this area that I wish to place it. And as you can see, this is what we end up with. So now I can put it into a position, and I believe this will suit me just fine. So now I'm just going to bring it over and put it over somewhere like so. Doesn't have to be perfect just for this, but you may need to play around with it and finesse it a little bit more to your liking. And there we go. So now we have that in the map and placed in the right place, and you can see that we have our eggs which will randomly spawn in or dynamically appear exactly the same as the eggs that we originally had on the map, but just in a cage instead of just all over the place, and then I have to go looking for them. Like I said before, if that's what you like having to hunt for them and look for them and whatever else, then leave it as it is. But I think that this is a much better, an easier way to get your eggs all in one place, and then just collect them from there, and that's it. So yeah, okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually save this, and I will zip it all up and I'll put it into game, and then we can actually see how that works and compare the two to see which one you guys would really prefer. And then I'll just leave it up to you to decide how you want to go about doing that, whether you want to leave it as it is and have just the eggs randomly spawn all over the area of the map, or whether this is something you prefer the look of and have the eggs spawn into this cage, and you can then just come over to one point on the map and collect them in an easier fashion, I think. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to zip all this up, put it in a game. We'll have a look at this and see how this works, and then, as I say, you can decide from there which one you prefer. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so here we are back in game again, and I'm just again filling up the grain. I've already done the water off camera. I didn't want to see that again. If you remember, I didn't save the game from last time because I didn't want to mess up my game save just for to have to then overwrite it again after making the changes in Giant Certus. So I've repurchased 50 chickens, and as I say, I've already put the water in here because this has the water mod. So I'm just going to put in my grain like so. Again, don't take much, that's fine. And we'll put this tractor out here out the way like so, and I'll switch that off, just jump out, and what I'll do is just come back in here. You can see the chickens, no problem, like they were before. If I bring up the menu here, we'll come across, and you can see we've got exactly the same as we did the previous version or earlier on in the video. So we've got 51 chickens, including the cockerel, productivity 100%, water and wheat, and no eggs. One thing has changed, and I will show you that now. We have our egg pallet or cage, egg pallet cage, however you want to say that, in the game. And as you can see, this is where I put it in Giant Certus, and it's shown up in game perfectly fine. So excellent. So what I'm going to do now is fast forward time again, and we will have a look and see what happens with the eggs. So bear with me while I do that. And there you go. So we'll just go around to the next day. That'll do fine. You can see we have our eggs spawning in, and they all spawn in within that cage, so I don't need to go hunting for them. We don't have any mysterious floating eggs in the sky. There's none in our pens. I mean, it depends on how you feel about it, because I mean, these are supposed to be egg laying pens in here, but you know, if that's the case, then why are they all over the place out here? It's really on you to decide what you prefer and how you want to go about it. Like I say, this was really just a video that I was asked to do for a subscriber, and for me, I think this is fantastic. Like I said before, I'm not really into the chickens and I'm not really into the eggs, but I think in this particular case, this is something that I will probably be putting onto any map that I play on from now on, if it isn't already in there, just to get into the chickens. For me, having to search around for that elusive egg that I can never find because it's been put into the map in an obscure place that just spawns in somewhere random that you can never ever find it, possibly it's in the sky or whatever else, I have no idea. But I think this is a really good mod. I think it adds something, like I say, in my case, for me to just be able to come to one point and then walk up to the cage and pick my eggs up like so. And if I then come into the actual menu again, I've picked up the 44 eggs that were spawned into the cage, and I now have them in my backpack. So fantastic. And I can go again, so if I just fast forward time again, and we have a few more, so we can have a look, and we have now another 7 eggs that have been produced, so I can walk over, pick them up, and you can see that they have now been added to my backpack as well. I believe in the instructions it says that you can actually spawn up to something like 286 if I recall, but have a look in the instructions yourself. I would definitely say they're worth a glance at. I hope this video does help you out in getting them, actually this particular mod, the egg pallet cage, into the map, but I would certainly have a look at the instructions as well. They are there to be looked at, obviously, and they will provide you with any holes that I have missed or skipped over or whatever else, and using the two together, the instructions provided by the mod creator and hopefully this video, you'll be able to get it all into the map and set up accordingly. And obviously if you are creating a map, you would need to first of all put down your nav mesh and set up the area that you're going to be putting your chickens onto that map that you're creating before you can either go down the road of getting this far. But you know, if that's what you are actually going to be doing, as I say, creating a map, then you know, theoretically you will know how to do all that up to this part anyway. I mean, creating the nav mesh and whatever else, and creating the actual area that you're going to be putting your chickens into, and then yeah, moving on to this. So hopefully this video will provide some information on how to go about putting this particular mod into the map, whether you're creating one or editing one. So very short video in this particular case, but hopefully it was informative. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.